All right, so I have an interactive question. You have to say it. What is your favorite fictional TV family? Favorite fictional TV family? You want me to give? Oh, I'll show you mine. It's this family. Do you recognize this family? This is when they were young. Full House. And so, what are your favorite fictional families? Because obviously they were not all family, right?
Good Luck Charlie.
Good Luck Charlie? Okay. Any other favorite fictional families?
Leave It to Beaver.
Leave It to Beaver? Okay. Nope. Nope. All right. So when I was growing up, I wanted to be on Full House because, they had that perfect family and everything, right? The Tanners have a perfect family. And they always resolved their conflict by the end of the show, and they were always happy, and they always ate together, and I always wanted to be a part of the Tanner family because it seemed like they had it made. It was perfect. They had conflict, but by the end of the show, they had resolved that conflict, right? You guys watch Full House, right? Yes, okay. Or Fuller House, which is when they grow from that up. And so it's definitely a difference between the families that we have, right? And the reason we sometimes want to be a part of these families is because we know that our families are not perfect, right? Our families are not perfect. And even though the families that we see on TV may look perfect, we know that it's not true for every single family. And our families sometimes would look more like a messy reality TV show like the Kardashians, right? That's some of you guys' favorite TV families, probably. Some of our favorite, we would look more like that than more like the Tanner household. And I remember growing up, and I had a brother and sister, if you didn't know, and we always got into fights. My brother was the middle child, but he was also a redhead, and so he always felt like he got left out of things. And so we got into fights for that all the time. I would get accused for taking his toys, even though, they were probably mine. And if they weren't, I was the first child, so they were always mine because he got my hand-me-downs, and that's always how it happens, right? Some of you guys are feeling that one right now because you know how it feels to be the second or third child. And so we get in fights about different things like that. And maybe you can relate because your family has been had their less than perfect moments. Maybe like me, you feel like your family's situation is a lot messier than what people on TV show their families to be like, right? Because, no family is a perfect family. No family is a perfect family. And maybe there's a lot of tension in your home. And that tension is because people are slamming doors or arguing a lot, or you guys seem like you just don't get along. Maybe there is no getting along, and you never talk about what's going on in your household. You just sense that there's tension there. You feel the stress in the room when your family talks about money or vacation or about step family or about holidays or seeing your aunts or uncles or whatever it is that brings the tension in the room. And that tension makes your house a very stressful place to live. Or maybe you've discovered some things about people in your family that you wish you didn't know. Some secrets, some relationship secrets, maybe some affairs, some legal problems, some bad decisions. And secrets that have hurt people or caused pain in your household. Or maybe for you, the problem in your family comes from something really serious. Something like abuse or neglect, addiction, something that can hurt people, abandonment. You may feel alone in these situations. And if you are, I want to encourage you to talk to your small group leader tonight about that so that you can have someone to talk to about what you're going through. Or maybe your family's facing some bigger problems. You're dealing with things like divorce, remarriage, a parent who left and never looked back, siblings, who are always in trouble, and maybe it's something like an illness that they're going through, a death that recently happened, something that is not like, that's not good. It's a big problem going on in your house. And things like that can certainly leave our families feeling less than perfect. And we know that these things can make our families feel that way. And honestly, no matter what you're dealing with in your house, I can tell you this is true for all of us. Some way or another, our family is not a perfect family. Because no family is a perfect family. And what's difficult about this is sometimes we think that it's not good, and it could never be anything good that comes from an imperfect family. And that's the furthest thing from the truth in actuality. You see, God can use imperfect people, imperfect families. And maybe we think to ourselves that God can't use our imperfect family because we are imperfect. That God couldn't use us if we really came from a family that was imperfect. Or that God is not working in our families. But, as we're going to see today, that could be further from the truth. In fact, here's the thing. The Bible has a lot of people in it that are messed up. Almost from, like, the second chapter of the Bible, you get to read how people are messed up. We start off with a family that messes up in the Garden of Eden. And they take a bite of the apple. And we see so much that the Bible has imperfect people and imperfect families. In fact, there's one family in the Bible whose story I like to tell and I like to refer back to. Not only is it a totally dysfunctional family, but God still did big things through their family. And it's the story that starts with a guy named Abraham. God promised Abraham that he would have many sons. And so many descendants that he could not count them. As many descendants as there are sands in the beach. As many descendants as there are stars in the sky. And I don't know about you, but whenever I start to count the stars in the sky, I lose count after like 5. But no, really. He was promised that he's going to have more descendants than could be counted. And that's really cool, right? Abraham had a son named Isaac. Isaac was a good guy, and he had twins named Jacob and Esau. Jacob and Esau. Twins. Even though they were twins, these two guys looked completely different from one each other. They were completely different people. They were nothing like twins. They looked different. They acted differently. They had different interests, just like some of our families. Our families, we may have siblings that are exactly like us, came from the same parents, whatever, but they act or they look or they don't even like the same things that we like. And all these differences cause drama between the two boys. Now here's where it gets crazy. Even though Jacob and Esau were twins, Esau was born first. And so being the firstborn son means that Esau got his father's birthright. He got the blessing from his father. And he would get all the wealth from his dad, everything from Isaac. And Jacob would get less. He would still get a blessing, but he would not get nearly as much. Because Esau would be carrying on the lineage of Abraham and Isaac and on down the line. And second, being the firstborn meant that he got the entire future and prosperity of the family's everything. So he'd get their property. He'd get everything. That's what Esau would get. And since this family came from Abraham, Esau's blessing was going to be huge. Abraham was a very blessed man. And because of that, Esau was going to get a lot. And the promises that God made to Abraham would then be passed on to Esau because of that blessing. And promises make their name great. And they do big things with the family and to bless all the people from one family. All these things are the things that Abraham was promised. And so Esau would then get that same blessing because he was firstborn son. And as you can imagine, Jacob, the younger twin, didn't love that situation. Because as the second born, he wasn't going to get the birthright or the blessing. He wouldn't get either. Now, their mother, Rebekah, favored Jacob over Esau. So together, Jacob and his mom came up with a plan. First, Jacob convinced Esau to promise his birthright to him. To promise Jacob his birthright. And honestly, it didn't take much. Esau was coming in and was super tired and super hungry. And so Jacob said, here's some food. And in exchange for this food, you give me your birthright. And so Esau said yes. And so people make crazy decisions when they're hungry, right? Have you ever been like out in the house or walking around the house when you're hungry and you just decide to do something stupid because you're hungry? Or for us adults, when we're grocery shopping and we're hungry, you end up buying like 16 frozen pizzas because you're so hungry and that's all you can think about is food. And it's so, and we do such dumb things. With the birthright now, Jacob, all he needed to do was to trick his father into him getting the blessing. And so Jacob was going to trick his father Isaac into that. And here's the crazy thing. It worked. As Rebekah was preparing this, she put wool skin on Jacob's skin because Jacob was a smooth-skinned boy with not a lot of hair, and his brother Esau was a hairy guy. And so whenever he walked in to see Isaac, the first thing, since his dad was blind, he would rub up and down his arms to see which son it was. And so that's how they got around that. And so Isaac gave Jacob the blessing that was promised to Esau. And of course, when Esau came in a few moments later, he had no idea what his brother Jacob had done. And so this is what happens next, these verses. It says this: when Esau heard his father's word, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me, me too, my father." But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau said, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob? This is the second time he has taken advantage of me. He took my birthright and now he's taken my blessing." Then he asked, "Haven't you reserved any blessing for me?" And Isaac answered Esau, "I have made him lord over you and have made all his relatives his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you, my son?" And Esau said this to his father, "Do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father." Then Esau wept aloud. And that's Genesis 27, 34 through 38. And you can read even more about their story and about this feud. And trust me, it only gets worse after this. After he steals his blessing, Jacob runs away from his family because he's so scared of what his brother Esau is going to do then. And Rebekah sent Jacob away into hiding, breaking up their family completely. What's the point of this entire insane story? Well, it's that the story doesn't stop here. Sure, their family was a mess, just like all of our families. Our family is imperfect, just like Jacob and Esau and Isaac and Abraham's family. But he had promised something great to Abraham. And a messed up family wasn't going to change that. Their family didn't have to be perfect for God to use them. Let me say that again. Their family didn't have to be perfect for God to use them. Hundreds of years after this happened, the writer of a book of the Bible called Hebrews looked back on this story, and there the writer didn't talk about the mess that was going on, or the bad choices, or the pain in this family. Instead, he said this: "By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau in regard to their future." That's Hebrews 11:20. See, Isaac did eventually pass on a blessing to Esau. It wasn't the same original blessing that he was supposed to pass on to Esau and the one that Jacob stole, but it was still something. He still blessed him. It was an act of faith. Even though there was a lot of really bad moments in their family, the very act of Isaac passing on a blessing was an act of faith. And it was a way of saying, I believe what God said about our family is true. I believe He has something good for us in the future. God has a plan for your imperfect family. And even in the middle of so much pain and so much problems, God has a plan for your imperfect family. You see, your family doesn't have to be perfect for God to use it. Seeing how God didn't forget about a less than perfect family back then, thousands of years ago, can give you hope of what He's going to do for your family today. In fact, for a lot of you, the most hopeful thing that this lesson can give for you is that no family is a perfect family. Even if you see families and think everybody's is perfect. But God is working in them anyway. Being imperfect isn't the end of our story. And isn't the end of the story. You don't have to be perfect for God to use you either. And your family members don't have to be perfect for God to use them. And so here's what I want you to try. Number one, choose to believe that God is working anyway. Choose to believe that God is working anyway. Your family will mess up. You will mess up. They aren't perfect. Your siblings will borrow your clothes and not give them back. As people look at each other. Your stepmom will yell at you. You'll get in fights. Your dad will disappoint you. And no matter what your family looks like, they aren't going to be perfect. The next time that happens, instead of getting frustrated, shutting down, and just walking away, acknowledge that God is still working in your family. And believe that God is working no matter what. Number two, stay connected to your family. Most of us tend to want to detach from our families whenever they mess up. Whenever they do things wrong, we want to just get away from them. But we have to continue to stay connected with them. We have to stay connected in ways that we may think are impossible. We want to stay in our rooms with our earphones in, or our earbuds in, and just listen to our music as loud as we want. We keep our eyes glued on our screen, and we just ignore everyone and everything. But what if instead you made the choice to stay connected to your family? To spend time with them, even though they disappoint you, even though they do something wrong. Trust me, you don't want to miss out on being part of the incredible story that God is doing in your family. So this week, try to stay connected to your family, even if you don't feel like it. Now here's the thing. For some of you, I know that staying connected to your family isn't the best option. In fact, it may not even be an option at all, because the stuff that makes your family imperfect is so hurtful, and it's more than just frustration and annoyances. It's hurtful. It's abuse, neglect, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is. It's the kind of stuff that makes staying connected to your family toxic. If that's the case, then you need to seek out one of your small group leaders and talk about it so that you can be in a place that is helpful for you. Open up to your small group leader, a teacher, a neighbor, a friend, a coach, someone you trust to about the situation you're going through. Someone who cares with you, and connect with them about what's going on in your home life so that they can help you make the best next step in your life. And I know it may be scary, but adults like your small group leaders, your coaches, your teachers, they care about you. And they want what's best for you, even though it may feel so scary. And they want you to connect with God, even in a moment when it feels like you just want to disconnect from everything else. Remember, your family doesn't have to be perfect for God to use it. God uses imperfect people and imperfect families for His good. And I believe that's true in my family, and I definitely believe it's true in your families. Now, as we're going to head into small groups, your family here at church, hopefully it's comforting to know that you aren't the only one with an imperfect family. So you guys will get the opportunity to talk a little bit about your families in groups. And all of you guys are almost all related. So it'll be great to talk about your family with your family in the group. But what's great about your small group is that you can connect with someone who knows how you feel. how you feel in life. And in the process of doing that, you can get a chance to learn all about the good things that God has been doing and is doing in your lives. So as you head into small groups today, I want you guys to think about this one question. What's one great thing you hope God will do in your family? Let's pray. God, thank you so much for loving us. And God, I pray for us to be able to see that even though our families are imperfect, God, that you are still moving and working in our families. And God, I pray for our conversations about our families today to be productive conversations, that we can open up about what's going on and maybe how you are still moving and working in those. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.